All right, let's get into it and break down the absolutely wild, unpredictable, and, let's be honest, chaotic start to the 2026 British GT season, the Silverstone 500. Wow, this was a 3-hour endurance race that had absolutely everything. I'm talking high drama, brilliant strategy, and a result that kept us all guessing right down to the wire. This single line from the official race report, it perfectly captures what this race was all about. Seriously, this wasn't just about who had the fastest car out there. Not even close. It was about who could somehow navigate the mayhem and just make it to the finish line in one piece. And believe me, that is no exaggeration. Before teams could even dream about podiums or championship points, they first had to deal with a minefield of on-track incidents, mechanical failures, and strategic gambles just blowing up in their faces. For so many of these teams, just finishing this race was a huge win. Now, just as a quick refresher, the Silverstone 500, well, it's the big one. It's the longest race on the entire calendar, and it demands this unique mix of pure speed and raw endurance. And those 3 mandatory pit stops, they are absolutely crucial. They basically turn the whole race into a massive high-stakes chess match on the pit wall. So, this race promised some drama, and boy did it deliver, right from the moment the lights went out. The first part of this race was just defined by pure chaos, taking out some of the biggest names before they even had a chance to get into a rhythm. And this is where it gets really interesting, because disaster can strike in completely different ways, right? First, you had the self-inflicted wound for 2C's Motorsport. Their 2 cars, teammates colliding on the very first lap. Ouch. And then you had the Barwell Lamborghini, a huge pre-race favorite, literally watching their hopes go up in smoke with a sudden fire. Just like that, 2 top contenders were out of the race. Okay, so with so many of the fast cars already out of the running, the race just completely changed. It became less about who had the most raw speed and way more about who could play the strategy game the smartest. Suddenly, the pit wall became the real battlefield. And just to add another fascinating layer of complexity this year, we had the new Bronze Plus rules. So, to put it simply, this meant teams had different minimum pit stop times they had to hit, all based on their driver lineup. This made that super important decision of when to do your driver swaps more critical than ever before. And if you want to see just how razor-thin those margins were, this is the perfect example. The number 77 Optimum McLaren was, you could argue, the quickest car on track. They were charging towards a potential win, but their entire race just fell apart because of a single second. They were 1 second too quick on their pit stop, got a devastating penalty, and boom, their shot at the win was gone. All for 1 second. Just when you thought things were finally starting to settle down, nope, the race had one more giant twist waiting for us. A late race safety car, all because of a spin, completely wiped out the gaps the leaders had built. It bunched the whole field back up and basically created a flat-out sprint to the finish for those last few podium spots. So this is where the result gets a little unusual, but it's really important to understand. The Australian duo of Shahin and Patterson, they drove an amazing race in their McLaren to cross the line first. They get the glory, they get the trophy, but, and this is a big but, as guest drivers, they aren't eligible for championship points. This meant the real winners, in terms of the title fight, were Jonathan Beeson and Charles Clark in the BMW. They finished second on the road, but they walked away with a maximum points haul. So, when all the dust settled, your final podium looked like this. The guest entry McLaren of Shahin and Patterson on that top step, followed by 2 incredibly strong BMWs. You had Beeson and Clark for Century Motorsport, and last year's champions Harper and Lung, who fought their way back for a brilliant 3rd place. So what does all of this madness actually mean for the championship? Well, here's the kicker. Because this was a long endurance race, it awarded 1.5 times the normal points. That makes this single result incredibly important for the rest of the season. And when you look at the standings, you can see just how massive that P2 finish was. Beeson and Clark now have a pretty healthy lead with 37.5 points. The other BMW of Long and Harper is sitting in second, followed by the top McLaren of Orange and Clutton. It's an early advantage for sure, but a really crucial one. Yeah, this chart really puts that early gap into perspective, doesn't it? Those 2 BMW teams have really established themselves as the ones to beat after round 1. They capitalized on everyone else's mistakes and misfortunes to build this really solid points foundation for their championship fight.
Which, of course, leaves us with this awesome question heading into the next round. The championship moves to Donington Park for a totally different challenge, 2 shorter sprint races. Now, on paper, this format should favor the more agile McLarens. So the question is, can they strike back? Or are the BMW teams going to continue this dominant start to their season? I guess we'll just have to wait and see.